Before we begin, please leave a comment, share your thoughts and let us know your lessons learned in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. In the heart of a village where time seemed to slow, dreams often faded just as quickly as they appeared, and people's lives were defined by their circumstances, lived a girl named Evelyn. Her life had been marked by tragedy since the day she lost her parents to a fire when she was just 5 years old. The fire had consumed everything, leaving Evelyn with nothing but memories of warmth and laughter that would never return. The people she had once called family were gone, and she was left with only the haunting scent of ashes. She was taken in by the Carter family, who offered her a home, though it was nothing like the family she had lost. They didn't see her as a daughter, they saw her as a tool, a worker to ease their burden. Evelyn woke up every day before the first rays of sunlight broke over the village, sweeping the dirt courtyard, collecting water from a faraway well, and cooking meals for a family that treated her like little more than a servant. Even when her body ached, and her stomach growled from hunger, she never received a word of kindness. The Carters would remind her, coldly, "We're doing you a favor by letting you stay here. Don't forget that." Evelyn had learned to endure the cruelty in silence, her pain buried deep within her heart. She didn't dare voice her complaints or ask for help. The fear of what might happen if she did kept her quiet. Every day, her mind wandered to the memories of her parents, wondering what their lives would have been like if they hadn't been taken so suddenly. But then, like the sun rising every morning, Evelyn would force herself to focus on her chores. Her adoptive sister, Scarlett, was the complete opposite of her in every way. Scarlett was everything Evelyn was not: beautiful, proud, and spoiled beyond reason, with long, flowing hair, sharp features, and a wardrobe full of dresses that shimmered in the sunlight. Scarlett was the star of the household. She knew she was adored by her parents, and she used that to her advantage. While Evelyn labored from dawn until dusk, Scarlett spent her days pampered, indulging in everything the world had to offer. Scarlett's dream was to escape the village and marry a wealthy man, someone who could offer her a life of luxury, far beyond the dull existence of a small village girl. Every chance she got, she would boast to Evelyn, "I'm going to marry a billionaire. You know, I'll leave this place, and I'll never have to lift a finger again." Evelyn, hearing those words day after day, couldn't help but wonder if Scarlett would ever understand how it felt to truly struggle. Her adoptive parents, the Carters, loved Scarlett and would do anything to see her succeed. They saw in Scarlett the hope of escaping their own poverty and achieving the wealth they had always dreamed of. And so, they put all their energy into ensuring Scarlett's future, constantly reminding Evelyn of her place in the family. "Look at Scarlett," Mr. Carter would say to Evelyn with a sneer. "She has the looks and the brains to marry well. What do you have? You can't even catch the eye of a poor farmer, let alone a rich man." Evelyn would keep quiet, the words stinging like thorns as they pierced her already fragile spirit. She had grown accustomed to the abuse, though it didn't make it hurt any less. As the days passed, her world became smaller, her heart heavier, and the hope she once had for a better life seemed further away than ever. Then, one hot afternoon, everything changed. A black Jeep drove into the village, its wheels kicking up dust as it made its way toward the Carter household. The sight of the vehicle caused a stir among the villagers, who had never seen such a lavish car in their humble home. The Jeep came to a stop in front of the house, and out stepped a tall, elegant man dressed in a fine suit. His name was Victor Hargrove, a businessman known for his wealth and power. He was the kind of man whose mere presence commanded respect. Victor had come with a special request. He had a son, Daniel, who was ready to settle down, and he was searching for a respectable, well-mannered wife for him. The request was simple: someone who would understand Daniel, stand by his side, and be his companion for life. When Mr. Carter heard this, his eyes widened. He had always dreamed of a better life, a life that Scarlett could provide for them. He was quick to agree, seeing this as an opportunity to elevate his family's status. "You want our Scarlett?" he asked, a grin spreading across his face. "Of course, you may have her. She's beautiful, polite, and well-mannered. She will be honored to marry your son." Victor nodded, his expression neutral. "We've heard good things about your family," he said. "We will return in 3 days for the introduction ceremony. Let your daughter be ready." Scarlett's mother, upon hearing the news, couldn't contain her joy. A billionaire as a son-in-law. This is a blessing, she cried, dancing around the house with glee. Meanwhile, Evelyn, who had overheard everything, felt a strange knot form in her stomach. The thought of Scarlet marrying into such wealth made her feel small. Invisible, even more so than before. But as she stood quietly in the background, a part of her couldn't help but wonder, why hadn't they mentioned her? Wasn't she deserving of love too? Why hadn't anyone ever considered her? 3 days later, the day of the introduction ceremony arrived. The Carters had spared no expense. The courtyard was swept clean. Plastic chairs were arranged under a canopy, and the neighbors gathered to witness the spectacle. Scarlet, dressed in a beautiful gown, stood with a proud smile on her face. She whispered to her mother, "I hope he's tall and handsome." The scene was set for what Scarlet thought would be the beginning of her life of luxury. But when 2 large SUVs arrived at the compound, things quickly took a turn. Out stepped Victor, dressed in a regal cream-colored agbada. But it was when Daniel, Victor's son, emerged from the car that everything changed. Daniel was tall, but his presence was far different from what Scarlet had imagined. He walked slowly, guided by a driver, with dark sunglasses covering his eyes. Scarlet's smile faltered as she realized the truth: Daniel was blind. Her face drained of color as she turned to look at her father. "He's blind?" she whispered in disbelief. "I can't marry him. This is a joke." Her father, desperate to secure the marriage, tried to calm her. "Judith, please, just give him a chance," he begged. But Scarlet was adamant. "No, I can't marry a blind man. I'm too beautiful for this. How can I marry someone who can't even see me?" She turned away, her pride wounded. Victor, who had overheard everything, felt a wave of embarrassment wash over him. "Judith, my dear, it's not about what he can see. It's about who he is. He may not have sight, but he has wealth, wisdom, and kindness." But Scarlet was unmoved. "I can't do this," she said, her voice cold and firm. "I won't." And just like that, the day that was meant to change her life ended in rejection, leaving behind a bitter silence. The Carters' dreams of escaping their poverty seemed shattered. But for Evelyn, standing in the background, a new chapter was about to unfold, one that would change everything. Days passed in the Carter household like the slow drip of water on a stone, unyielding and monotonous. Scarlet's refusal to marry Daniel had left her family in a state of shock, and the weight of their disappointment hung heavily in the air. While Scarlet's parents tried to salvage their shattered dreams, Evelyn quietly went about her chores, the noise of the world outside her little sphere almost deafening in its cruelty. Though the rejection had been public, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a spark of hope growing within her. She had watched from the shadows, her heart heavy with mixed emotions: sympathy for Daniel, the man whom no one seemed to care about, and a quiet hope that somehow this would be the catalyst that would change her life forever. For the first time, she allowed herself to dream. But she quickly buried that thought. She knew how cruel the world could be to someone like her. Even if her heart yearned for a better life, she had learned long ago not to expect anything. Victor, undeterred by Scarlet's rejection, had left the Carter family's compound, his son Daniel beside him, the disappointment evident in their every move. But unbeknownst to the Carters, Victor had already turned his attention to another, more unexpected option: Evelyn. The following day, a knock on the door echoed through the Carter household, breaking the silence of early morning. Evelyn was busy sweeping the courtyard. As usual, her back bent in silent servitude. She paused, startled by the sound. Her heart skipped a beat, though she couldn't place why. When she lifted her head, she saw the black Jeep parked in the same spot it had been just days before. She felt a chill run down her spine as Mr. Carter opened the door, greeting Victor with the kind of deferential smile reserved for royalty. Victor entered the compound with an air of quiet authority, and Evelyn, in the distance, could only watch, confused by the scene unfolding before her. She had no idea that this would be the moment that would shift the course of her life forever. Victor's words when he finally spoke to her father were simple but clear. "We would like to meet your daughter, Evelyn," he said, the look in his eyes inscrutable. Evelyn's breath caught in her chest. Her mind raced, but she couldn't form a coherent thought. Was this a dream? She could hardly believe it. For all the years she had toiled in the shadows of this house, she had never once imagined that she could be chosen for anything, let alone by a man of Victor's wealth and influence. She wanted to run away, to hide from the humiliation of being thrust into the spotlight. But something inside her stirred, a flicker of curiosity, a sliver of hope. Victor and Daniel had come to offer Evelyn something that no one in her life had ever dared to, an opportunity to be seen for who she truly was, to be valued beyond her ability to serve. But even as Victor laid the proposal before Evelyn's family, she could sense the coldness in her adoptive father's eyes. It wasn't an opportunity to him, it was a business transaction. An unexpected turn of events that could be used to his advantage. He didn't hesitate for long before accepting the offer. Yes, of course, Mr. Carter said, practically salivating at the thought of a better life for his family. Evelyn is respectful, hardworking, and humble. She will be the perfect choice for your son. You are welcome to take her with you. Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to run, to scream, but she stood frozen in place. No one had asked her what she wanted. No one had cared enough to ask. She was being sold off, just like Scarlett had been, but for entirely different reasons. Where Scarlett had been chosen for her beauty and allure, Evelyn had been chosen because she was deemed humble and obedient. Traits that, in this world, seemed more valuable than anything else. Within hours, her few belongings were packed, and she was told to get into the car. There were no goodbyes, no farewell hugs, no tears. She was nothing more than a tool, a pawn in a game much bigger than her. As the car pulled away from the village, Evelyn glanced out the window, the landscape passing her by in a blur. The weight of the decision that had been made for her was like a physical presence, pressing down on her chest. When they arrived at Daniel's mansion, Evelyn was overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it. The mansion loomed before her, its grand stone walls towering above her like the gates to another world. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of luxury, polished floors, delicate tapestries, and beautiful, elaborate furnishings. She had never seen anything like it. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe, her senses overwhelmed by the opulence that surrounded her. Victor led her to a room, a small but elegant space, where she was to stay. The house was silent, save for the distant hum of servants going about their duties. Evelyn felt like a ghost, floating through the halls without purpose. Her heart was heavy, filled with conflicting emotions that she couldn't even name. She had never imagined herself living in such luxury, but neither had she ever dreamed of leaving the village in this way, without choice, without agency. Daniel, who had been quiet during the car ride, finally spoke. His voice was soft, but there was a firmness to it. Evelyn, I know this must be overwhelming for you. Please, take your time to adjust. I won't rush you. If you need space, I'll give it to you. His kindness was disarming, unexpected. Evelyn had assumed that someone with so much wealth and power would be cold, distant, and perhaps even cruel. But instead, Daniel's demeanor was gentle, almost apologetic. Evelyn couldn't help but feel a tug at her heart. She was a stranger in this world, but he, too, seemed like a stranger to her. Days passed in a haze. Evelyn tried to adjust to her new life, but every part of her resisted. The mansion was beautiful, yes, but it felt like a gilded cage. She was always alone, always quietly tucked away, performing menial tasks and keeping to herself. She tried to speak to Daniel, but he was often absent, retreating into his study or tending to business matters. When they did speak, it was brief, polite. There was no warmth between them, no connection. She could tell he was hiding something from her. But what? Was it the same secret he kept from everyone else? As the days turned into weeks, Evelyn began to wonder if she would ever belong in this place. The luxury, the grandeur, the silence, it all felt so foreign to her. But despite the emptiness of it all, there was one thing that kept her grounded: Daniel's kindness. Despite the tension between them, he never treated her like a servant, never ordered her around as her adoptive family had. There was something in his eyes that spoke of pain, something that made her feel like she wasn't alone, even when she was drowning in the loneliness of his mansion. One evening, as Evelyn was walking through the garden, her thoughts heavy, she found herself standing before Daniel, who was sitting alone, looking out at the sunset. "Are you all right?" she asked softly, her voice uncertain. Daniel turned to her, his gaze locking with hers. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, finally, he smiled, a small, genuine smile that took her breath away. "I'm all right," he said, his voice low and steady. "But I think you're the one who's not all right." Evelyn looked down at her feet, unsure of how to respond. "I'm just trying to figure things out," she murmured. Daniel nodded. "You're not alone in that. We're both trying to figure this out." In that moment, something shifted. Evelyn didn't know what it was. Maybe it was the sincerity in his voice, or the way he looked at her as though she mattered. But for the first time since arriving in this strange new world, Evelyn allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The days that followed were marked by an uneasy silence. A silence that was broken only by the quiet hum of life at the mansion. Evelyn, though accustomed to hard work and solitude, found herself drowning in an ocean of loneliness. She had been given a life of luxury, but it felt more like a gilded cage than a blessing. The mansion, with its grand marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and walls adorned with expensive artwork, was a far cry from the simplicity of her life in the village. Yet, in the midst of all this grandeur, Evelyn still felt like a stranger, an outsider in a world she had never belonged to. Daniel, who had been both kind and distant, seemed to understand her struggle without words. He made no demands on her, never pushing her to adapt more quickly or forcing her to fit into the mold of the woman he expected her to be. Instead, he gave her space. He offered her his company when she wanted it, and allowed her the freedom to find her own way when she didn't. Evelyn appreciated this, though she couldn't deny the deepening sense of isolation that gnawed at her. Every day, she spent hours walking the sprawling gardens, watching the flowers bloom and fade with the passing seasons. It was in these quiet moments that she found solace, though it was always fleeting. The peace she longed for seemed to slip through her fingers the moment she returned to the mansion. Despite Daniel's kindness, there was something unspoken between them, a wall built from the secrets he still kept. One evening, as she was returning from the garden, she overheard a conversation between Victor and Daniel in the study. She had been passing by the open door, intending to return to her room, when the sound of their voices reached her ears. Curiosity got the better of her, and she stood, hidden in the shadows, listening. "I know she's not the one, Father." Daniel's voice was low, tinged with frustration. "She's kind, but there's something missing. I don't know if I can marry her." Victor's response was calm, almost too calm. "You have to, Daniel. This marriage is the only way to secure our family's future. We cannot afford to lose this opportunity. You'll learn to love her in time." Evelyn's heart sank. She had suspected something for a while, but hearing it spoken aloud felt like a slap to her face. Daniel didn't want to marry her. She wasn't the woman he had hoped for, the woman who could fill the void in his life. She wasn't the one he loved. In that moment, Evelyn's world seemed to crumble around her. All of her dreams of a life beyond the village, a life where she was seen and valued, felt empty. She had come to this mansion with the hope that perhaps, just perhaps, she could be more than just a servant to someone. But now she knew the painful truth. She was just another obligation for Daniel, another duty to be carried out for the sake of his father's wishes. The love she had begun to feel for him felt like an illusion, a dream she would never get to live. The next few days were marked by silence between them. Evelyn could no longer look at Daniel without feeling the sting of betrayal. She kept to herself, avoiding him at all costs. She spent most of her time in her room, staring out at the horizon, her thoughts racing. She wondered if she had ever truly mattered to him, or if she had been nothing more than a pawn in his father's plans. But then, something changed. It happened one afternoon when Evelyn was sitting in the library, reading a book to pass the time. Daniel walked in, as he often did, but this time, something was different. There was an earnestness in his eyes, a sincerity that Evelyn hadn't seen before. He didn't speak at first, simply standing in the doorway, watching her. When she finally looked up, their eyes met, and for the first time, Evelyn felt the weight of his gaze, like he was seeing her. Truly seeing her. "Can we talk?" he asked softly, his voice hesitant. Evelyn nodded, though her heart was pounding in her chest. She knew what was coming. He was going to tell her the truth that had been hanging in the air like a shadow for days. He didn't want to marry her. She wasn't the woman he had fallen in love with. "I know I've been distant," Daniel said, taking a step into the room. "And I know you must have felt like you were nothing more than a duty to me." His words were like daggers, each one cutting deeper into Evelyn's heart. "But that's not true. I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how to feel." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to speak, to tell him that it was too late. that the damage had already been done. But she stayed silent, her heart heavy with emotion. I've been hiding something from you, Daniel continued, his voice barely a whisper. I'm not blind anymore. I lied to you. I kept it a secret because I wanted to know if you would love me for who I am. Not for what I have. Not for my wealth. Not for my sight. Evelyn stood there, stunned. Her mind raced, trying to process what he was saying. He wasn't blind? All this time, he had been pretending, keeping the truth from her. The weight of the deception hit her like a tidal wave, crashing over her, threatening to drown her in its force. I'm sorry, Daniel said, his voice breaking. I never wanted to deceive you. I just wanted to be sure that you would love me for me. Not for the man I once was. Or the man I could be. Evelyn felt tears welling up in her eyes. But she didn't let them fall. She had already cried enough. Already suffered enough. This wasn't just about love anymore. This was about trust. About betrayal. About the fragile threads that held them together. And in that moment, Evelyn realized that no matter how much she wanted to forgive him, she couldn't. I can't do this, she whispered, her voice trembling. I can't be with someone who lies to me. Who hides the truth. I came here hoping for something better. But I don't think I can ever trust you again. Daniel's face crumpled, a look of regret and sorrow washing over him. He reached out to her. But she stepped back, shaking her head. Please, don't, she said softly. You've already taken too much from me. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them stretched thin, fragile as glass. Finally, Daniel turned and left the room, his shoulders heavy with guilt. Evelyn didn't know what to do next. The world she had once dreamed of, the world of luxury and love, had been nothing more than a mirage. She had been a fool to believe in it, a fool to think that someone like Daniel could ever truly care for her. As the days passed, she withdrew further into herself, her heart broken, her spirit shattered. But as she spent more time alone, wandering the empty halls of the mansion, a small voice inside her began to whisper. She had come from nothing. But that didn't mean she had to stay there. She didn't need Daniel's love, or anyone else's, to define her worth. She was more than just a pawn in someone else's game. She was Evelyn, a woman who could stand on her own, who could find her own way, no matter the obstacles in her path. And with that realization, Evelyn knew that the journey ahead was hers to decide.